panelists and candidates who are here today. We're excited to host this forum. And I just want to say that now more than ever, local journalism is incredibly important. And as Evanston prepares for its upcoming elections, the Daily Northwestern, the Evanston Roundtable, and Where the People Meet TV are really dedicated to providing accurate and engaging and transparent coverage. So we're really looking forward to this forum today and getting to talk about and ask questions about the issues that matter the most to Evanston.
And hello, can you all hear me? Okay. I'm Malika Gardner with Where the People Meet, and thank you, Lily. I called her up and said, let's organize a forum. It's crucial right now. And I wanted all the media to get together to really do this. And the roundtable said, we'll come on as panelists. So it's important that we get the right information out. So thank you so much for working with me on this. Thank you. The stakes are definitely high right now. And across the country, we see things shifting in policy, in power, in leadership. And Evanston is the same thing. We have a lot of shifting taking place. And some people see it as progress, and they're excited for what's to come. And then others see this shifting as a serious concern. So whether you agree with it or you don't agree, you support, you don't support, the point is it's leadership that matters. It matters. And this property that we're on right now, the history of this property, think about the leadership. Black families lived on this property. They had homes. It was the leadership back in what, 1930? 1929. The leadership decided they wanted this land. So they literally picked up the houses from the ground and moved them to the 5th Ward. That's how powerful leadership is. That's how powerful it is. And that's how powerful elections are. Because guess what? It can happen again. Might be happening right now, it just doesn't look the same. So we gotta pay attention, we gotta stay engaged, we gotta stay informed. And so I thank my media crew, friends here, Heidi Randhava helping us out, my partner in crime, Don here, Percy, my mom, everybody, and all of you for coming out, because you could have been at the Super Bowl, watching the Super Bowl. But you put Evanston first, and that speaks volumes, and I thank you. So listen closely to all the candidates, the questions, and we will be coming out to get questions from you to ask the candidates. And thank you to the candidates. They're all coming at their different times. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for coming and take the tough questions from the panelists and the residents. Thank you so much. So we're going to get started and get this ball rolling. For sure. You guys ready? Okay, so we have the 5th Ward. We have incumbent Bobby Burns and opponent Carlis Sutton, and they're representing the 5th Ward. So the first question you're going to ask each other. But first, let's have you introduce yourselves. 30 seconds, and then ask each other a question.
Again, Bobby Burns, and good to see everybody out here today. I promise when you see me looking at my phone, I'm not checking the pregame. Also on council, if you call me, I respond, I answer, I'm involved, I'm all in. And it's probably because I grew up in this town, I care a whole lot about it. But also I'm raising a young family here. I got a 1-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and my wife, and so I use the parks and the public facilities and everything else that we rely on. So I'm all in. I work hard for this ward, and I'd love to continue doing it.
Thank you. Carlis Sutton, 3rd generation Evastonian, and I would appreciate if when you leave this building, you will look at the parking lot, and you'll see numbers on the parking lot. 2617 was my grandfather's house. That was picked up and moved from this facility. The only thing that remains is is the elm tree that he planted in the backyard. Why are we still talking about displacement of black people in this community these many years later? That was 1929, when you picked this house up and moved it to 2307 Foster. Yeah, there are issues that we have in this community that we have to address, but there's some, at this time, we should have a resolution. I guess my training in the Peace Corps was to think globally and act locally. So therefore, first thing is to address the needs and concerns of your constituents, not to make this contentious and not to make this a community where we do not work together, but work together for the goodness of us all. Thank you. Oh, my question. Do you take any personal responsibility for the displacement of the people on Wesley and Jackson?
Absolutely. As I said before, that's why I was all in. I want to give you a quick quote on here. As indicated, these are structural engineers speaking. As indicated above, the overall conditions of the stairs and balconies is poor. TSS recommends removal and replacement of all the balconies and stairs of all 3 buildings. That was the first structural engineering report. The second one said it is strongly recommended that the remaining residents relocate as soon as it is immediately practicable. All 3 buildings should be shored or prepped for complete demolition of the walkways and stairs. Measures should be taken to prevent access or entry by the public as a basic safety precaution. So absolutely. I was involved to make sure that the city supported those residents in an unprecedented manner. All residents, aside from one, are under a city subsidy for the next 2 years, allowing us the appropriate time we need to help them transition into permanent housing. For those who we couldn't find housing for immediately, we provided an opportunity for them at an extended stay in Skokie, with whom the city has a relationship with. Food stipends were provided, moving assistance were provided, along with other benefits. And so absolutely, and then the last piece is making sure that we adjust our policies. Now we have a policy that says, even if you've cured all your violations, which these buildings had the last time they were inspected, just because you have violations, you still need to, you're still going to get inspected on a 3-year cycle. And so we've adjusted our policy. And the last thing I'll say is that I've made sure that we inspected all the California-style walk-up buildings that had one way in and one way out, which is largely the reason why we had this crisis in these 3 buildings by the end of the summer. And that report was provided to the ACDC committee. So absolutely, anybody that's elected in the capacity that I am should take full responsibility, but more importantly, should act, right, to make sure that people are taken care of. So absolutely. Thank you for the question. And I don't have any question at this moment.
You don't have a question for your opponent?
No, but I wish him well, and I like Mr. Sutton. I know him well, so I'll just say that I wish him well. I like Mr. Sutton, and I think he means well, for the 5th Ward in our community.
Okay, gentrification. What are the signs that your community is being gentrified? How do we know? What are the signs to let us know that it's coming or that it's here? Or either one of you, both of you.
Well, the first sign is when I open my door. Do I need a mic?
Yes.
The first sign of gentrification is when I open my door and see, first, 4 houses removed from my block for 9 attachable units. That's the first thing. Secondly, the change in color in my neighborhood. When I returned to Evanston in 1991, it was all black. Now we're down to only 17% black in my block. Also in gentrification, there was always a term when you think of the government being involved in building and providing homes for people, the tenure or the tone in my neighborhood was urban renewal means Negro removal.
Same question. I think what I'm seeing most is, and it's quite simple, it is expensive to live in Evanston. This is a high growth area. It's always been on that trajectory. We're the tip of the North Shore, right by the lake, Northwestern, community city to Chicago. This is a valuable place to live. People want to live here. They want to develop here. There's not a single plot of land in Evanston that somebody wouldn't develop on. That's not the case in all places in Chicago. They're giving away land for $1 to Chicago residents in some parts of Chicago. So that just shows you that this is a different ball game that we're faced with here in Evanston. And that's why, again, taking it back to what I said in the beginning, I'm not interested in rhetoric. I took action. I'll give one example. Jackson and Emerson, those who know that well, it was boarded up when I came into office. And what I made sure happened is, one, that those boards were removed and boarded up from the inside to try to have an immediate impact on blight. And then I was able to work out a deal with the landlord for the city to purchase those properties. When we purchased them, nobody was living there. They were all boarded up. The fence was around them because they were getting ready for demolition. The city was able to purchase those buildings, 7 parcels, over an acre of land, and it was actually demolished by a local contractor, African American, who actually lives in the ward, but it was done through a fair and square bid process. Now the site is prepped and ready for development, and we're going to do a really interesting kind of creative community engagement process for the first time, I think, in Evanston, where we're going to front load the community engagement process, allow the community to sit along urban planners and architects to design a housing proposal. Then that housing proposal then is going to be incorporated into another RFP process to find a developer. And then the developer that comes closest to meeting the community's vision will win the bid, will either get the land at no cost or at a discount rate, may receive TIF funds. But the affordable housing proposal that goes there will be developed and designed by the community. That's just one example. I have 3 or 4 others that I've done since I've been in office with the support of the community and my colleagues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the city has pushed in the 5th Ward initiatives like guaranteed income, health initiatives to combat poverty. Would you want to see these programs continue, and what changes would you like to see? 60 seconds.
Yes, I would like to see these continue. 2 of the things that I'm very concerned about. One, we have a new school coming up, and that's going to be harder on our tax base. But more important, we have to make this a livable city where all people can feel comfortable. And I find it difficult to say we would have affordable housing when no house in Evanston, even in my community, sells for less than $300,000. That's an oxymoron. Okay? So we have to come up with more reasonable positions, like supporting Black landlords who give below market rent. We also have to look at things like what is best for our community, maintaining our parks. Okay? We have on my water bill a charge for lead pipes. You said the city you were going to provide those and change them from all of Evanston. I see you changed them from some parts of North Evanston, but why do we, in our 5th Ward, have to be responsible for an additional charge of removing lead pipes from our property? When the city puts them there, the city should take them away and stop poisoning our youth.
The city is actually receiving a grant, about $5 million a year over the next several years to replace all the lead pipes in the 5th Ward at no cost to the homeowner. I'm proud that the city was able to get that done. Mr. Sutton mentioned affordable home ownership. When I talk about affordable housing, I'm talking about home ownership too. I mentioned on the previous response that I have 4 other examples. I'll give you another one for home ownership. There was a vacant house on Hovland, 1808 Hovland, when I got into office. Property had sat vacant for many years, maybe a decade, maybe more, and all boarded up. And what we did is I worked with my colleagues on council and staff to get the city to purchase that home. And now we're going to be able to, we donated it to SEPA, and SEPA has already identified funding to rehab it so that it can be sold affordably at no more than $200,000. And so, again, there are solutions to these, seemingly intractable issues if you get in there and get to work. And so, again, as a solutions-oriented person that's not really interested in rhetoric and believes it's my responsibility to get results, that's what I'm going to continue to do.
So we've heard a couple times, both during this section and then earlier as well, mentions of the 5/5 TIF, as well as at times reference to the existing Civic Center. So on a broad level, what priorities would you have for the 5/5 TIF in the coming term? And then more specifically, put aside the question of where the Civic Center should be for City Hall, how should the property at 2100 Ridge Avenue, as it exists, fit into the 5/5 TIF over the coming term?
First,
90 seconds.
Okay, 5/5 TIF should be also to residents and not businesses and restaurants. First. Secondly, I've already seen the plans where you plan to demolish the current building and put in housing, and I'm opposed to that.
Is that the Civic Center? You guys want the Civic Center?
Carlos, talk about the Civic Center problem?
Yes.
He has more access to plans than I do, which I'm a little disturbed by as a city council member. I need to. I've not seen those plans, and I mean that. I would love to see that if that exists. In terms of the 5/5 TIF, the reason why he's asking this question is that if the Civic Center does land back on the tax rolls, that money would help to generating tax increment for the 5/5 TIF. And which means we have more funding to direct towards the various priorities that were codified in the ordinance that developed it, which are many. Home rehab was a big one. That's why this is the first TIF, maybe ever, that has included so many residential parcels, because home rehab is important. We want to really honor people who have lived in this community but need some help updating their, addressing some of the deferred maintenance issues that they may have in their home. And what I heard from Ms. Payton and others is that they didn't necessarily care for our CDBG rehab program, although it's no interest, although it's deferred. They wanted some of the same grants that they see businesses providing. And so if you go and look at the minutes of the 5/5 TIF committee, which I chair, that's exactly what we're working on right now, is grants that we can provide to help not only owner-occupied residents, but also people who provide housing like Ms. Payton and Mr. Sutton in keeping up with their properties. And so, again, that was a commitment that I made while I was advocating for the TIF, and we're making good on it.
So you mentioned the Fifth Ward School, and obviously, it's going to be a nice new building, and District 65 has almost $200 million in deferred maintenance on its other buildings. So how do you keep the new school from accelerating gentrification and displacement in your community? You have 90 seconds.
Well, the first thing you have to do is make more affordable housing in the community. And secondly, I also was concerned about the new school and who will be there. You're extending the border, Fifth Ward, and now it's all the children in Fifth Ward, basically now in my block, are bused out to other schools. So I'm looking forward to bringing these children home. But meeting the needs of our community, I think first my priority will be to the elderly homeowners and then to the maintenance of the school.
The idea that we can't have nice things in the Fifth Ward without displacing people is offensive to me. And I would never, ever bend to it. I don't agree with it. I think we can have both. We have to be able to have both. And so I'm not worried about it because, again, we're taking action. We have to be able to provide affordable housing, subsidized housing whenever we can, both for homeowners and also for renters. It's really that simple. The sweet spot for a two-bedroom anecdotally seems to be about $1,000 a month. And for a home, Mr. Sutton mentioned this earlier, it's right around $200,000. People are leaving to North Chicago and Waukegan because they have those things. We have to provide them here, right? And we have to find ways to bolster our affordable housing fund to do that. One way where I did that, with, again, the support of the community and my colleagues, was to negotiate into the Northwestern Stadium Agreement, the single largest contribution of affordable housing in Evanston's history, $30 billion over 15 years. We haven't written enough about that. That is a story. And it may not be enough for all parts of Evanston. I'll give you that. But at least respect the fact that my perspective is trying to bring wins to a community that desperately needs affordable housing that, to Mr. Sutton's point, is not being displaced now, but has been displaced for the last several decades, and at least appreciate that I did what I could with what I had available to me to get a win for them, and I think we did that.
From the audience?
Mr. Sutton. It's muted, hit the left button. Hello?
Sorry about that. Mr. Sutton, I used to live in the Fifth Ward. The reason I don't is due to machinations, lack of information, lack of transparency. What I would like to know is what you would do to make sure that your constituents never have to suffer through that again.
Yes. One of the things that I've always been concerned about is proper notification, dealing with all projects that are in the city. Several that occurred in my neighborhood was required to have to what we call the stakeholders. When we went to the meetings, the majority of people in my black club received no notification about what was about to happen. And those that did, they sent postcards to 2 or 3 members and not to everyone. So that kind of picking certain people who they think will be in favor of these projects and not giving widespread opportunity for everyone to participate, I think is almost egregious. That you are really giving people not an opportunity to participate in the process when you select certain people to notify of these changes that are going to happen. So if you can't notify us all in the Fifth Ward about what's going on, then we should rectify that as soon as possible.
Good answer. Would you like to respond?
I'll just speak more generally to it. I mean, I explained earlier the type of community engagement process that we're planning for Jackson and Emerson. It'll be the first time that I have an opportunity to not only plan but facilitate the community engagement process from start to finish, whether it was TIF, 5/5 TIF, whether it was the Church and Darrow development that Mr. Sutton is alluding to in his response. I jumped into both of those things in the middle. And so this will be the first opportunity for me to show really what my background is, which is in community engagement. And so I explained how that would work, front-loading the community engagement process instead of developers trying to persuade the community on a design and a project that they've come up with on their own. Again, we're front-loading the community engagement process, allowing them to develop a housing proposal, and then developers have to justify to the community how it meets their needs. And that's something that I plan to continue if given an opportunity to serve another 4 years.
Okay, we're gonna take one more question for the Fifth Ward and then we're gonna move on.
Mr. Sutton, this is addressed to you. During the development that they wanted to do on Church and Darrow, you weren't in favor of it, and I was a little upset, so I did come to you and you explained to me that you weren't for it because there weren't enough rentals set aside. So I thank you for explaining that to me. Now, this is for you, Alderman Burns. In the Fifth Ward, it seems that whenever we have projects or something that's going on regarding housing, we can't it doesn't go forth. It's always at a standstill now. I have been missing some of your meetings. I've had some health issues, so I did lose out, and you did explain some of those things tonight. But it's always the Dice Stadium, it's going forth, they're working on that. Downtown developments go forth, they work on that. It always seems like when it comes to the Fifth Ward, there's a standstill. The Wesley project, that should have never happened. That happened. Those buildings are sitting empty now. Now you're talking about the city. Why aren't things completed in the Fifth Ward? Emerson and Jackson is sitting there. If the city's sold, take that money and do Emerson and Jackson. That's a big project. That field's sitting there. I was told it was going to be a soccer field, temporary soccer field. We don't need any more parks or soccer fields. We need housing. all my family that are professionals that could afford to live in Evanston, my sons, my close nieces, people that would help my family members that are older now that we need, that would help us. They moved out of state or they're in Waukegan, Wheeling, Northbrook. They're not here in Evanston. They can afford it. They will not buy here in Evanston. It's too expensive. Thank you.
I mean, you'll notice that we're singing the same tune. You know, that's what I've talked about since I've been up here on stage, and you know, I can speak to some of those. So Wesley, those properties are privately owned, and the tenants. The last thing I heard is that they're suing the property management company and the owner. So the city doesn't own those properties. We have no say in when they develop. Church and Darrell, the reason why that hasn't gone forth is because one of the neighbors, a law firm, sued. And we literally have been in court proceedings for the last year and a half because of it. Thankfully, most of those complaints have been now dismissed, and only the ones against the city remain. And I'm very confident we're going to beat them, but it just shows what people are willing to do when they have money, and frankly, when they're emboldened by some of the neighbors to do these things. I'm not sure what Mr. Sutton said to you about Church and Darrell, but the reality is we're talking about 33 affordable units, 12 three-bedroom units, and the 2 bedrooms were $800 a month. Tell me anywhere in Evanston where you can get that. In Jackson Emerson, again, I already explained what we're doing there. There's a RFP that's was published maybe 2 weeks ago, and we're moving forward with the community engagement process. But what I want to highlight on Jackson and Emerson, which is important, and this goes back to the competitive nature of how I approach this. But for me, that would have been likely a townhome development if council would have approved it. So let's just be clear here, is that that's the only thing that people are interested in doing in the Fifth Ward, from what I can tell, is kind of moderately priced, is what they call it, townhome. And I always ask people, what do you think moderately priced townhomes go for nowadays? It's like $500,000 and something, right? And so that's why I took action, is because if that's not gentrification, displacement, whatever you want to call it, then it's something that's not good for our community. And that's why I stepped in to make sure the city acquired it, and now it's on track to be developed for affordable housing so that people can afford to stay here in Evanston.
I also hope that going forth and in the future that Fifth Ward they don't end up taking property and some of the properties go into intimate domain.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I also hope
That's
you're
where it's going.
Affordable housing.
I hope you're feeling better too.
Affordable housing or housing for the poor that were forced out.
Again, I like to keep it plain. 2 bedrooms for $800. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you so much. If you guys want to take 30 seconds, just a final thought, and we're going to move to the Fourth Ward.
Okay, 30 seconds. First, Malika and Northwestern Roundtable, I want to thank you for this opportunity to express our views and our concerns. But more important, I want to thank everybody, particularly people of the Fifth Ward. Do not let us be, in this election, the least turnout in Evanston. Fifth Ward only has 63%, all the others. I don't know if it was because they didn't think they had people to vote for, but I would like to see a large increase in registered voters. And I thank you, and I'm glad my grandfather and my grandmother are wondering, how did I get up here today when they were put out?
Not much else to say, but go Eagles. I gotta say that. I'm just thankful to be in a position to be able to serve where I grew up. And I enjoy this work. I really do. I think anybody that's interacted with me as a constituent, they're always surprised how quickly I get back to them. If I see an email come through, I'm responding right away. If I see a call come through, I'm responding right away if I can. If you call me, I'm Johnny on the spot, and I'm coming out to check out the situation. I see Ms. Brown back there, unless she's left. One of the first things that she asked for was a garbage can on Darrell and Simpson. And with a wave, if you could just sell to the crowd, did you get that garbage can on the corner? Everybody look.
But you know it's gone now.
It's gone? What happened? Well, we gotta look into that. We gotta look into that. But and here's here's a funny thing. I want everybody to pass Simpson and Darrell in 2 weeks, and I guarantee it's back. Thank you.
Thank you.